Why don't we start off with Alphabet? Seems to be the thing that's really moving the NASDAQ higher right now. I want to talk to you about those cloud results. 32% growth year over year. What was your take on the quarter, specifically that part of the business?
Well, that was one of the big things because, as you know, they've got really four different areas. It's the cloud, it's Gemini, it's YouTube, it's search, which of course has been the big existential question, what's happening there with all the competition coming in. But cloud, they are the third after Microsoft and Amazon. So the results were very strong and very encouraging because, of course, we know the demand that's happening there. So that this is a rising tide that's going to help them all. But they're very much in the game there. So that was extreme positive.
Well, that was my second question. So is this another tailwind for that quote unquote AI trade? We've kind of got some mixed headlines, whether it was Stargate or ASML or NVIDIA like a week ago, they can sell in China again, kind of moving that trade up and down. Is this a tailwind, a sustainable one, at least until one of the other hyperscalers reports?
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think it is because, again, as we know, daily, we see evidence of what's happening with the AI trade, and it's just getting more and more powerful. And certainly when you see, for instance, the GPT usage numbers from 200 million last August, then doubling in 6 months, and then doubling again 2 months later, I mean, that all needs tremendous computing power. And so that just seems to be escalating.
All right. What's your take on trade? Last night we heard from the president saying the tariffs are going to be between 15 and 50%, the 50% for people who the administration sees as not being cooperative with the negotiations, I suppose. And also this morning we have China and the EU meeting at the China-EU summit in Beijing. How are you viewing all these trade headlines and the potential for deals or no deals coming up on August 1st?
Well, I think that the market about a month ago really decided that these are negotiating tactics by President Trump, which has been risky. But it seems that he has backed off from, the early April draconian imposition or the proposal for these. I think that he has shown that he is really negotiating and is really using this as a lever to bring people to the table quickly. Moving the deadlines and saying August 1, and although China has some flexibility. So I think that the market, there's been some question about whether it's being a little complacent about trades, but right now, I think the market's assuming that tariffs will end up at around 15, 16%, right, versus 2 to 2.25 at the beginning of the year.
All right, so NASDAQ and S&P very close to all-time highs, but your word of the day is cautious. Who needs to be cautious here?
Well, professional investors. I think, we're seeing with, as you said, the market's in new all-time highs practically daily at this point. You've got 22.5 to 23 times earnings and valuation, which, of course, that's why earnings are going to be so key in this quarter. But I'd say cautious because you're starting to see meme stock action. That's typically a sign of a frothy market. And also, where do you go from here? Excuse me. So professional investors, if you haven't been part of this tide, do you invest now? I think it's really a tough time to put new cash to work, but you have to. So that's the caution. Right. Certainly retail investors are not.
All right, so you kind of give us a sector pick. It's basically AI-focused stocks like NVIDIA, Broadcom, Meta, and Microsoft. Generally, when you're investing in them, a lot of them are pretty close to their all-time highs as well. So do you need to be cautious when it comes to them as well, especially when we're talking about headline risk? Like look at IBM, moving back on just weaker than expected software, but overall a pretty good report. And then last week, we can't forget Netflix, better than expected when it comes to top and bottom line, even raised its guidance and still traded lower.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important question because Netflix is a surprise. It's still going down. It had recovered briefly the day after, but it's still going down as people reset in evaluation. And that's a question of expectations, getting a bit ahead of the stock because certainly long term, it's certainly a core holding for me. But Alphabet was interesting. That did not have the same reaction, although it's a different thing. Alphabet is only a 20 times PE, so which is incorporating a lot of the risk. So I think you do have to be cautious. I think if you don't have position in some of these names, you should have at least a toehold, because they will longer run, I think, work out. But I think you have to be very cautious here. And usually something happens to give us a buying opportunity.
So are you saying cautious, maybe even taking a little, we got to go in a second, but trim a little bit of the profits of some big winners? If you look at names.
Oh, yeah. I've been doing that in NVIDIA or Broadcom as they run up, even though I'm a big believer, and at least in the short and medium term and possibly longer term, you must take some off the table. That is just risk management.